Welcome to the Tulsa Neighbor Podcast. My name's Aaron Tiger, and I'm just like you, probably, if you're watching this, somebody who loves Tulsa. I live in Midtown Tulsa. I work at Christ Church on Harvard as a pastor in Midtown Tulsa. My boys go to Edison, part of Tulsa Public Schools. My wife works for a nonprofit here in Tulsa, and we just love Tulsa. Let me tell you a story. When I was growing up, my dad was a United Methodist pastor, which means I moved around a lot. A couple years here, 4 years here, 7 years here. We moved to Owasso when I was in high school, and I just loved kind of being in this area. Went on to college and then went to seminary and started pastoring in Mulder, Oklahoma. And then I had an opportunity to come to Tulsa. Now, Tulsa was always home for my wife, Heather, and I. When we were coming home to see family, all of her family lives in this area. My parents were in this area. Tulsa was coming home. But it wasn't until I lived in Tulsa that I realized this is what home feels like. I'd always been living in places and I've been just loved getting to meet different people and experiencing different kinds of communities and towns and all that kind of stuff. But when I lived in Tulsa, I realized this is what it feels like to be home. Now, after living here for a few years, we actually took a job somewhere else, and so we were away. But I always felt this need that we needed to get back home. And so about 18 months ago, we moved back home to Tulsa. One of the things I love about Tulsa is that there's just so much that happens here. It's this little city, but it's a big city. It's got a lot of opportunities, but you can still know people. And that's one of my favorite things about Tulsa. It's the people that are here that are making a difference. And there's so many exciting nonprofits and businesses and organizations and individuals. And I wanted to hear and share their story. Because that's what I believe, is that everybody has a story. And I may not know your story, but I know that you have one. And this podcast, the Tulsa Neighbor Podcast, is all about giving people an opportunity to share their story about their nonprofit, about their business, and their own personal story. And that's what we're going to do. One of the things that I love is just this listening to podcasts and experiencing that. And this is what we will do, is we're going to have an opportunity to have conversations with our Tulsa neighbors. Let me tell you what's coming up in this preview season. I had an opportunity to interview people who are involved initially with the situation involving housing in Tulsa. Did you know that we are thousands of living units behind in Tulsa? You're going to learn about that as we talk with Jeff Jaynes at Restore Hope and hear about what they've done with emergency rent assistance and how things have changed. You're also going to hear from Tina with Family Promise about, what they're doing and the number of families that are on their wait list to be able to find temporary housing so they can get more permanent housing. You're going to hear from Sarah Grounds, with City Lights in Tulsa. And you're going to hear about how they're moving, not just to doing ministry under the bridge, but also building their own housing area and just how exciting that is. You're also going to hear from a guy named Kevin Rice. And Kevin is actually a developer who owns some apartment complexes, affordable apartment complexes in town. And just kind of his philosophy of housing people and why that makes a difference and what their family's philosophy is on affordable housing. It's really great. You're going to love that. And then as a bonus in the season, I've also talked with TJ Warren. TJ works is the leader of Stand in the Gap, and they do ministry and programs for people, for widows, which is a major need for those who are in prison. And also those who are kind of aging out of foster care, those orphans in that setting. And so it's just really encouraging to be able to hear these stories. So that's what we've got coming up. And I think you're going to love it. And you're also going to hear the story behind the story. So you'll hear about what they're doing, but you're also going to hear about the why they're doing it. What is it? And that's one of my favorite parts, is to be able to hear the why. What in their story enabled them to want to make a difference in their way. And so there are some fantastic stories. We're also going to learn a little bit more about their background, their expertise. And just so we have some fun questions along the way. It is a conversational podcast. And so I didn't want to be in a hurry. And so we're going to save for you most of the conversation that we had. We sat here and we're going to go for an hour and a half. But And so, I would encourage you as you're watching this or as you're listening to this, you can put it on in the background. Maybe you need to listen to it a couple of times just to be able to soak in and to learn your neighbors better. And if you feel compelled to reach out to one of those organizations or to be a part of something, that's what this is about too. Especially with our nonprofits. They're always looking for people to contribute with their time, with their energy, with their finances. And if God's placing it on your heart to do something, boy, I'd love for you to be able to do it. And we're going to try this out. So I want to thank you for giving this a listen. And I want to thank you for giving this a try. This is something new, but it's something we need because in our community are so many people who are making a difference. And we want to share their story. And we want to share in our experience of making Tulsa a better place. Next week, our first podcast is going to be with my good friend, Jeff Jaynes. I want you to give a little listen to just a little snippet of our conversation with some of the stuff that they're doing with Restore Health.
By the time that year was over, that first year of COVID, we distributed about $800,000 of the TCF United Way Fund. So that's already more than double where we had been the whole year before. At the same time, the Schusterman family came to us and said, in June 1st, the courts were going to reopen. And they didn't want anybody to be evicted in the middle of that COVID emergency. They said, what would it cost to pay everybody on the docket at that time?
Wow.
And we looked at it and it looked like it was about $1.5 million. They said, well, we'll give you $1 million. Our first grant ever from the Schusterman family was for $1 million. So we used that to prevent eviction. At the same time, a month later, the state of Oklahoma came to us and said, the CARES Act, some funds came through the state. The governor would like to do eviction prevention as a part of it. Would we help? A little bit of a different animal because that's federal dollars, which involves a whole bunch of more bureaucracy that you're going through, regulations that you have to follow, all of that stuff, audits. All of that we're good with, but, that's a lot of it. But one of my board members said, perhaps we're here for such a time as this.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me, quoting the Bible, So we said yes.
Yeah.
So ultimately that first year of COVID, we distributed $4 million.
Okay.
A lot more than the 300.
Yeah, and $4 million. How many families is that?
That was about 1,500 families.
1,500. So that's next week on the Tulsa Neighbor Podcast. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. And I'm feeling like such a podcaster. If you would do a couple of things. If you're watching this on YouTube, would you please, what do they say? Smash that subscribe button. Hit subscribe. Hit like, make a comment, help us to get this out there. We'd love it if you would share this on social media. Hey, something new is happening. I can't wait for that on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, X, whatever it is, Blue Sky, however you want to do it. Help to get the word out. Send an email and include this in there. If you're listening to this on one of your podcast feeds, then please subscribe. And apparently what they say is reviews are key. So if you would please give a review, give a good review. If you're going to give a bad review, just don't take the top. But if you could give a good review, we would absolutely love that. This is an experiment, and I can't wait to take this journey with you. I've already had these conversations, and you will be blessed. You'll learn about some great people in Tulsa, some great things that are happening, and you're going to love this city more when you are done. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.